welcome. Donald.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. She makes me sound like Jesus Christ or something. So, actually, I feel deeply humbled because I'm in a room with a lot of champions. For example, Vanessa, Eric, Derek. Okay, maybe not Derek, but many good speakers in the audience tonight. And I'm just here. I'm just an old Toastmaster here to share some of my thinking and some of my experiences with regards to the International Speech Contest. Now, how many of you have actually signed up for the International Speech Contest? Okay, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I remember my first contest. That was way back in 2001. That was many years ago, before many of you were born, of course. It was a very frightening experience, but it was nerve-wracking. But at the same time, it provided me with that breakthrough in public speaking, because it provided a platform which forces you, or it forced me, to actually go beyond and put in the effort. It goes beyond the usual or the regular amount of effort that I would put in towards rehearsing speech, developing, and then getting feedback from the audience. So what I'm trying to say is, taking part in the speech contest is the quickest way, and certainly the most effective, efficient way to push yourself to find that breakthrough in public speaking. So if you haven't signed up for the speech contest yet, by all means, please reconsider. And maybe not the speech contest coming up, but certainly the upcoming speech contest later on. So my thoughts, now they're not the Bible, of course. They're just my opinions and suggestions and what I've seen and observed amongst the other champions that I've come across in my Toastmasters journey. In a speech contest, a lot of you think that, okay, I'm just here to take part because my president or my friend or my girlfriend or my husband or my wife forced me. So I'm there just to fill the 7 minutes of airtime, and then I just, once I finish, I just go back and sit down. But if you really want to do well, and if you really want to improve and find that breakthrough in your Toastmasters journey, always have the end in mind. Always think that anyone can win a speech contest. And I'm not saying that to be humble. I'm not saying that just to make you feel better because I'm giving this workshop. I've seen all kinds of people, speakers from all shapes and sizes, from all different professions and backgrounds, win a speech contest. Because fundamentally, if you think about it, unlike an IQ test, unlike a job interview or something like that, somebody must win the speech contest. Am I right? It has to, unless they all go overtime, or they're So somebody must win. There must be a third place, there must be a second place, there must be a winner. So in that sense, on that token, why should the judges pick you? They would pick the speaker or the contestant who is the most enthusiastic, have the end in mind, who really wants to win. So that enthusiasm. Secondly, that was me way back in 1999. I know I haven't changed much, of course. Okay, 2000. I was an engineer by training. I didn't do much public speaking. I never I never took drama classes, public speaking courses, anything like that. So what I'm trying to say is, you don't have to be brilliant to succeed. You need to have that psychological edge, have that enthusiasm and that passion to win, and to make the judges vote for you. Because remember, I'm going to repeat this over and over again. Somebody has to win the contest. Thirdly, that's the judging ballot. And a lot of you maybe received the judging ballot via the email, or you've seen the judging ballot. If you want to win a speech contest, don't go through the judging criteria one by one, because I know it's got like 10 points for vocal variety, your speech development, your opening, your body conclusion, all that. The judges are not robots. Okay, maybe some of them are actually robots, but the majority of judges are human beings like you and me, okay, like you and I. So the judges would tend to vote for the speakers or the contestants whom they find memorable, whom they find maybe something extraordinary about that person, about that speaker, somebody who kept them entertained, somebody who touched their hearts. So all that is very important. They would actually go through marking. But at the end of the day, when they put the name on the ballot, when they submit that judging ballot, It's going to be the contestants who made them feel a little bit better about themselves, who made the judges feel a little bit better about, maybe somebody else around them, the family members, the colleagues, somebody that inspired them and gave them that extra passion to make that speech memorable. So put that aside, and fourth, the hidden rules. It's not found in any of the judging ballots, regardless of whether you search the International Toastmasters website or anything like that. The hidden rules are, there's always a need for a positive, upbeat message. How many speech have you heard and have seen that one that just talks about people dying or people getting fired at work and you're miserable, your relative died and the speaker just left the stage crying, made everybody else cry, and then towards the end of the contest, and he or she becomes the winner. You don't, right? Usually the speaker who comes out on top is somebody who actually has a very upbeat, positive message that leaves you feeling a little bit better about yourself and the people around you. So remember, you don't see that in the judging ballot, but the need for a positive, upbeat message. There's little need for deep, meaningful thought. What I'm saying is that you don't have to sound stupid. What I mean is that in 7 minutes, you can't actually talk about the meaning of life. You can't get so philosophical. I know some speakers actually do. I'm not going to mention any names because you may not know him. His name's Foster. But, but all these philosophical people who try to tell you about the meaning of life and why a bowl of rice is a bowl of rice, kind of thing. You tend to confuse the audience. What you want is a very simple, upbeat message. It could be a message that you've heard, thousands of times before, but just don't get too philosophical. Don't confuse the audience. Don't bore the audience. Entertaining. Now you'll find that a lot of the speakers who win are those speakers who made the audience laugh. Memorable, once again, to be liked. If the judges or the audience likes you, the chances of you winning that speech contest is that much higher. So it has to be entertaining. Now, when I say entertaining, it doesn't mean that you go and start taking off your clothes, okay? That may be extremely entertaining, but it has to be done in good taste. So entertaining, the passion, it could be very dramatic, it could be memorable, people like you, so it has to be done in good taste. And be different. Once again, somebody has to be third, somebody has to be second, somebody has to be first. So therefore, the people who tend to come out on top, or the contestants, are those who just keeps you, keep reminiscent, in the back of your mind. After the speech contest, you go to the bathroom, you go to the toilet, people talk about you. Oh, did you see Derek's speech? Wow, that was wonderful. Did you see how he made us laugh? Or did you see Eric? He still looks like a... Eric? Okay. He found that breakthrough. And what about Bernie? Yeah, I've never seen Bernie talk like that. Actually, she doesn't usually talk much, but I've never heard Bernie sound like that. So be different. Have people talk about you in the bathroom, when they go to the toilet, when they wash their hands, they talk about you. Now, these are the speakers or the participants who tend to win. Okay, be different. Now, fifth is different contests, different rules. Those of you who've participated in different levels of competition, Vanessa, Eric, and I'm sure you agree with me, is that you have to tailor-make your speech for a particular contest. For a club contest, in an international speech contest, you have the club contest, which moves, if the winner of that goes to the area contest, goes to the division contest, then goes to the district contest. And then after you go through the district contest, if you win that, then you go to semi-finals, which is usually held in North America. And then if you win the semi-finals, you go to the World Championship of Public Speaking. And you can actually, the new rules are, well, the new rules, the rules are that you can use the same speech. You can, but you don't have to. Can use the same speech from the club contest to the semi-finals. And then if you get past the semi-finals, you must have a new speech. But that's not what I'm trying to share with you this evening. In the club contest, the smiley guy and the heart guy, the smiley guy is the entertaining aspect of your speech. In a club contest where people know you, if people tend to know your background, they've heard your speeches before. So if you want to be memorable to your club members or to the judges who actually are influenced by the audience response, even though it's not a humorous speech contest, it's usually a safe bet to have 75% humor, entertainment, and the 25%, the touching the heart, the emotional resonance within your speech. If you go the other way, if it's entirely 75% is grabbing the emotions of the audience and 25% entertainment, usually that may not work in a club setting. Don't ask me why. That's the way I've, through the more than 10 years of Toastmastering, that's what I've seen. But in an area contest, it's actually the reverse. Why is that? Because in an area contest, if you think about it, people in club contests, they know you. The representative of the Hong Kong Achievers, Toastmasters Club, moves to the area contest, and the audience members, they're all actually barracking, they're all actually wanting their own club representative to win. So even though if you're very entertaining, if you're very charming and all that, they tend to be more conservative, the audience members, because they are all there to cheer on, to cheer their own club representative. And once again, the judges will be swayed, will be influenced by the audience response. So if you're actually 75%, or if you're 80%, 100% all about entertainment, and the judges feel that, it's just it's not even a humorous speech contest, it's all about making people laugh, where is the speech value? In an area contest, the judges tend to look for speech value that much more than in a club setting. In a division contest, where you're speaking in front of a bigger group of audience in a bigger room, it's about half-half. Those who actually make the audience, they keep the audience entertained, but at the same time have that speech value that the judges, or those more critical judges are looking for, tend to do better in a division contest. But what about a district contest? In a district contest, if you think about it, you fly all the way to China, the city in China, it's the last event. Okay, it's the last event in the 3-day convention, and people have heard all these wonderful speeches from the leaders who always talk about how great the club is, how you can actually get more members. The dinner, you hear all these MCs and all these club officers giving speeches and all that, and they're actually bored to death about hearing speeches. So they wake up on a Sunday morning, they attend the district speech contest. And do they want to be bored with some very deep, meaningful thought? Well, maybe some of them do, but on the whole, the audience want to be entertained. I've seen many, many district champions in an international speech contest, not a humorous speech contest, the international speech contest in a district contest setting, win the speech contest because they were the most entertaining. So keep that in mind. Speaking on the last event of a 3-day convention, on a Sunday morning where people are usually grumpy because they haven't had breakfast, they have to wake up early to listen to you, and they want to be entertained. Okay, so those who entertain will get the judges on their side. What about a semi-final contest? Now we've gone past the 3-day convention in China, so 3 months later you're taking part in, usually it's in August, you're taking part in the speech contest, the very first event, usually the very first event in America. So the judges have flown X kilometers, 10,000 kilometers or miles just to be there, and they're representing different countries and continents and all these kind of very important places in which they come from and the professions and all that. And they sit there, and it's the very first event of a 4-day convention. Do you think that if you just entertain them, they're going to vote for you? No, because what they're looking for is, apart from keeping them entertained, apart from that speech value and the touching the hearts and the emotional resonance, they also look for these Mona Lisa. So something that's really sort of, that you don't usually find in a club setting. These deep, inner, deep thought that makes them feel, wow, yeah, I like that speaker from South Africa, or I like that speaker from China. Wow, I haven't heard that. That doesn't appear in my country. There's something that very different that sort of sways the international judges to vote for you. So something artistic, something a little bit above the usual speeches and the speech value or the emotional resonance that you'll find in your own country. So you have to seek that. And what about the World Championship? Now we go back to the World Championship is not dissimilar to the district contest. Once again, remember a 4-day convention, speech after speech after speech after speech, all these district leaders talking about rah, 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 how great Toastmasters is, from morning to noon to evening, workshops, dinner speeches and all that. And on a Sunday morning, they're grumpy, they haven't had their coffee, they have to wake up and listen to you, and there's a room full of about 800 people in the audience. And do they want to be entertained? They do want to be entertained. So in the World Championship of Public Speaking, if you have watched the 2015 World Champion, was the guy funny? Yeah. He was funny, right? And 2014, he was funny too. 2013, 2012, they're usually the entertainment and the entertaining aspects of the speech is that much higher in the World Championship of Public Speaking. And you may ask, why? It's the highest level in the speech contest. Don't they expect more speech value? Don't they expect more Mona Lisas? That's just the way it goes. Judges are swayed by the crowd are swayed by the other people in the audience, and if the audience response is strong, in an 800 or 1,000 group of audience, if the response is good, then the judges will vote for that speaker. The write-up of your international speech contest is Ed Tate, the 2000 World Champion of Public Speaking. He actually spoke in Macau back in, 10 years ago or something like that. Talked about the 4 H's, the head, the heart, the humor, and heavy duty. So did that international speech make you think? So if you're writing up your speech, did your speech make the audience think? Did it touch the audience's heart? And there goes the entertaining aspects of the speech. Did it make the audience laugh? And heavy duty means, was it something significant that you want to leave in the minds of the audience members? So the 4 H's, from Ed Tate, the 2000 World Champion of Public Speaking, regardless of whether it's the club contest, regardless of whether it's a district contest or the World Championship of Public Speaking. So a good speech or a safe speech or a winning speech usually have those 4 H's. The content must come from you. What that means is when people speak from their own hearts, when they tell their personal stories to the audience, the words, the audience can tell whether it comes from you or whether you just copy that or just regurgitated something from the internet. So that sincerity, that passion, it must come from the speaker. So personal experiences, what bores you, if you feel bored about the content, it will most likely bore the audience as well. Avoid that topics. Now you're thinking, what topics shall I choose for my next international speech contest? So people always talk about like politics and Occupy Central, for example, property prices, and you hear that every single day in the news. And if you go and actually use that same theme in your speech contest and the audience are just totally bored, they don't want to listen to any more of those topics, then you're facing an uphill battle to win the hearts and the minds of the audience, obviously. So avoid topics that people have beaten to death. And the message is, why should the audience listen to you? Remember, it's all about being liked and being memorable. Being liked and being memorable. So what do you want the audience to feel differently about themselves, about the people around them, for example? Why should they listen to you, and what's in it for them? Now, once again, your speech or your message does not have to be revolutionary. You don't have to listen to something in which, wow, I've never heard that before. The winning speeches tend to actually deliver messages which are quite old-fashioned. They could be talking about how you should treat your loved ones, or maybe what's, you're looking all around the world for things that you love. What's the most important thing is that the person whom you love or the things that you love are right next to you. All these kind of old-fashioned messages that you've probably heard from birth or from as a child. You can use them again, but it's the packaging that makes the audience and the judges love you. Okay, it's the packaging. Don't think that you have to think of some transformation of ideas in which only somebody from like the Alan Merckx or the Tesla CEO, you don't have to do that. You don't have to climb Mount Everest. You don't have to ride on a blue whale or something. You don't have to parachute from 50,000 feet or something like that. Just use all these old-fashioned messages, just repackage it, use your own story, and make the audience like you and remember you. That's the key. You're the messenger. The style, the story, the conversational approach. Now, the storytelling, I think you've all heard that many, many times before as Toastmasters. Storytelling, tell a story, make a point, or make a point and tell a story. It doesn't matter which way around it is, but it's the most effective way to get your speech across, or to get your message across. And sometimes when you open a speech, you don't have to say, now ladies and gentlemen, tonight I'm going to tell you a story. Okay? You don't have to say that. Just go straight into the story. One of my speeches that I did in 2005, the year in which most of you were not born yet, remember, is I started the speech with something like this. My mother and I were walking past a row of parked minibuses in Causeway Bay. When we walked past one of the minibuses, the driver spat out the window, catching my mother on the face. She turned to me in desperation, do something! So I went up to the minibus driver and I said, you apologize. And the minibus driver was just laughing at me. So now I got angry. I said, you come out right now. And the minibus driver came out and I saw that he was over 6 feet tall, 2 dragon tattoos on both arms. So I said to my mother, the driver looks sorry. Let's go. So a story is used to vividly describe certain scenes within your life. And a story, when you say, oh, how do you actually package? Just go straight into it, okay? Just go straight into it. The audience will pick up on it. And they can use their own visualization to actually go with you on that journey. Conversational approach, don't try to preach to the audience. It's not Sunday service. You don't say, you have to be good to your mother. You stop wearing blue anymore, okay? And you cannot laugh. All these preachy, very sort of authoritative style are gone. Maybe back in the 60s when there was JFK or the politicians in the way they actually deliver speeches. Nowadays, it's more of a conversational. It's like having a conversation one-on-one. Regardless of whether you're speaking to a room of 10 or 10,000, the audience would prefer a conversational approach. The technique, the opening, the opening participation. The opening is very important. As Clive mentioned, and also Vanessa in the evaluation, a lot of what gets or grabs the audience, remember the judges are swayed by the audience, is the opening. Why should people remember you? Usually they remember your opening and your conclusion. The opening is very important. The first 10 seconds, the first 20 seconds. If I open a speech like this, I'm 10 years old, school's out. My mother and I said, would you like to go for a movie? And I said, yes, that would be a good idea. As opposed to the same words, I'll say, I'm 10 years old, school's out, and I have absolutely nothing to do. My mother said to me, would you like to go for a movie? I said, yes, yes, the movies, the silver screen, blood, guts, action, aliens, 10-year-old heaven. I said to her, you're right. So exactly, maybe in those kind of words, if you open your speech in such a way that you make the audience remember you, remember they have to go to the toilet and start talking about you, remember after that. If you have a powerful, memorable opening, the judges and audience will remember you. And audience participation is another way, a very effective way I've seen very good speakers use, is what's audience participation? Does it mean actually I invite Derek up to give a speech, when in the middle of my international speech contest? No, that's not audience participation. Audience participation is just say, how many of you are over the age of 50? Okay, just one hand, see that audience participation part. Usually, it works the other way around. How many of you are under 50? And you see a lot of hands go up, okay? So audience participation is because when you're, as a speaker, it's not a one-way dialogue. You're trying to get the audience participation by actually responding to rhetorical question, maybe not yelling out or anything like that, but in their minds, once they're off on the listening mode, they're on to the participation mode, then they can actually, you can actually take the audience, you can grab the hand and take the audience through your contest journey or the contest speech. The conflict. A speech, a good speech, a winning speech must have a conflict or conflicts. Meaning that because we are human beings, how many of you go to the movies or you switch on TVB or you go and log into that Korean soap opera website and just hope that for the next 2 hours, everybody is very happy. They're all talking, oh, hi, yes. What did you have for dinner? Oh, I had kimchi. Where did you go for your holiday? I went to Japan. Oh, how was that? Oh, it's very good. For the next 2 hours, it's just like, okay. So as human beings, we love conflicts. Why do we log in? Why do men watch boxing matches? They want to see each other beat, the two boxers beat each other up. Why do women like to, I've got to be very careful with this. You get the idea, Conflicts, whether it's a conflict within your workplace, between you and another person, or a conflict between yourself. You could be having this argument or these thoughts that yourself is not agreeing, with yourself. So conflicts either with somebody else or conflicts with yourself. So conflicts is what the audience, or as human beings, tend to love. Storytelling, I told you about that. You may ask, how many stories can you have in a winning speech? I've seen a speech which was extraordinarily well done. It was actually the 2001 Darren LaCroix. He had 5 stories in 7 minutes. And you may say, wow, that's a bit too much for 7 minutes. It may be. I've seen Ed Tate, the 2000 world champion of public speaking, he had 1 story in his winning speech. So once again, there are no formulas as to how many stories. Of course, you can't have 20 stories in your speech because you lose the audience. But 1 to 5, it really doesn't matter. As long as they gel, as long as the message is consistent, as long as you have a great opening, something that grabs the audience and makes the audience remember you and like you by, doesn't matter. You can have like maybe between 1 to 5 stories within your speech. I would say maybe go for 2 or 3. Tell a story and make a point. In an international speech, unlike a humorous speech contest, the judges usually, regardless of which level of contest, they usually look for a message. So if you just tell a story and then you just go and sit down and they're thinking, that was a great story. I'm going to remember that story, but I don't know the point or the message that the speaker was trying to get across. So usually you craft the story, you deliver the story, and then you make a message. So with that particular demonstration I had earlier, with the altercation with the mini bus driver, my message was about forgiveness. So the guy spat on my mother. No, if I spat on my mother, obviously she will not forgive me. You're actually making yourself feel better. So that was a message that I was trying to deliver within that 7 minutes using about 3 stories in my speech. In terms of humor, usually I talked about the entertainment or the entertaining aspects of a winning speech. A good speech keeps the audience entertained. Humor is just one way to entertain the audience. It's not the only way. You can have drama, it can be very touching, and it keeps the audience on the edge of their seats, but humor usually works. And there's a whole different separate workshop on humor that you can attend, and it's actually a different kind of art that a lot of Toastmasters can try to perfect within their speech journey. But I won't go through in details, but in terms of why use humor, is actually breaking down the audience and allowing the audience to see the speaker is not taking himself or herself too seriously. How? Don't offend. So go for safe humor. What I mean by safe humor is in an international speech contest, if you talk about a racial joke and maybe you're speaking in Malaysia, or even if it's not Malaysia, if you're talking about something that offends women, for example, and you think it's very funny, it may be very funny, but 90% of the judges are women, then the chances are you're not going to win that speech contest. So the safest bet is to actually, whilst making them, be funny where you can and then hit them with the message, but you make fun of yourself. That's always an easy and a safe way to apply humor. So be funny where you can and then hit them hard with the message. So once you mellow them, once you sort of make them they like you, and then you deliver that message, they're going to remember your message a lot easier. But what I discovered was that heart wins over humor. You can be very funny in a club setting. Remember the club setting or the district level setting, but in the other areas or in the other levels of the competition, heart usually wins over humor. So if your speech is just all about entertaining the audience without a high speech value, for example, the chances are you may not win. As opposed to a speaker who's about 50-50, 50% entertainment and then 50% speech value, then the chances are the 50-50 person will win. Why did I put a however there is because a lot of people, because they have attended my workshop, it's not. A lot of people know, okay, so it's 50% entertainment, 50% speech value, so I have to put in speech value in my speech. So you look up on Google, speech value. Oh, it's about talking about a deaf. It's talking about being fat and then now I'm skinny. It's talking about all these kind of things you actually deliberately contrive and write into your speech, which is not, you don't feel passionate about. But you put it in because you think that, because you have to have speech value, and the judges look for that. So when I say heart wins over humor, don't deliberately go overboard by making the audience cry in a way that you're totally not passionate about. So if I say, I used to be an engineer, didn't like the job, didn't like the people around me. I had subordinates like Eric. And it was a very tough time. Were you all touched? Yes, I put a big tick, against my speech, So don't do it just because you want to touch the hearts of the audience, or don't overdo it just because you feel that you must have speech value. It must be true. It must come from deep within your heart, and you must feel very, very passionate about something to actually have that heart, or touching the hearts of the audience, that speech value within your speech. Your delivery must match your words. I talked about all this dramatization, all these gestures. Now, the bigger the room, the bigger your gestures have to be. So everything has to be magnified. So if it's a really small room like this, I'm not going to go like all these kind of things. It will be very distracting to the audience. But if it's speaking in a huge auditorium, actually move your shoulders a bit more. It'll look perfectly normal to the audience. So when you're rehearsing a speech, you can have all these wonderful and different and dynamic gestures, but they must match your words. So you can't say, my name is Donald, yes, kind of thing. So it must look natural. When you rehearse it, make it a natural part of your speech when you rehearse. Doesn't matter if you have a lot of gestures, just make it look natural. The pause, I think as Toastmasters, that's a given. You must allow time for the audience to digest your message. So you must have those pauses within your speech delivery, obviously. So if you go you speak really, really fast, as some speakers tend to do, or as speakers tend to do when they're nervous in a speech contest setting, then just tell yourself to slow down, allow the audience time to digest, particularly if you have that particular humorous punchline and the audience is laughing, ha ha ha, and you allow them to laugh. Take the time to digest that humor, and then you move on. So the pause, you actually put that in and build that in to your rehearsal as well. Natural gestures, I talked about that. Doesn't matter how dramatic you are. If it's a huge room, huge stage, big group of audience, you can be very dramatic, but just make it look natural. Being different, I talked about that as one of the hidden rules is, once again, you need to have people talk about you in the toilet. Think about that. Why should they talk to you when they leave the speech contest, they're out washing their hands or they're doing their business and they're thinking about you? That's what you want to be able to actually do and perform in such a way that people actually do that so they can remember you. So being different is on a scale of 1 to 10, you must find an 11. A lot of speakers, or a lot of effective speakers in a speech contest environment I'm talking about, is 1 to 10 means that a lot of speakers have done that over the past 2 or 3 years. They've been in speech contests, they've viewed the DVDs, they've viewed the speeches online. A lot of people, start in the middle, and then they sort of have a little bit of a storytelling at the beginning, and then they start, they start poking fun at Derek and Eric and Bernie and whatever, and then they start talking about their own personal experiences. So all these formulas, they work well, but the audience, and certainly the judges, having heard so many speeches before, are expecting that. So find something that the audience, Toastmasters, and judges do not expect. What I mean by do not expect is 2001 World Champion of Public Speaking. How many of you have actually viewed that speech, Darren LaCroix? Okay, a couple of you. Darren started his speech by actually giving the first, 20 seconds of his speech whilst lying flat on the floor. Now, I won't try to attempt that because I won't be able to get up, okay? But first 20 seconds of his speech, he was just lying flat with his face on the floor, and he was just, delivering his lines, which was very effective. Okay? The least, that's what the judges and the audience did not expect. So have something in good taste. Don't start taking, in good taste, but be different. Reverse it. Usually a lot of people don't give out the message at the beginning. They sort of talk about a story, and then towards the end, when you see the green signal and the yellow signal and the red, my message is be nice, and then sit down. Okay. So a lot of speakers tend to actually rush through and then try to make the audience remember the message by having it towards the end. Why not actually reverse it? Have it at the beginning. My message is be nice, and then you so just do something different. There's no hidden formulas, or there's no hard and fast rules. There's no Bible as to what makes a contest champion. I've seen so many different styles, different ways of telling a story, so many ways of actually packaging a speech that any way works. So it doesn't matter if you're an accountant, an engineer, a teacher, a policeman, anybody. You can be from all walks of life. It doesn't matter where you're 18, 23, 65, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where, what nationality you are. Anybody can win a speech contest, but you need to be different. Have people talk about you in the bathroom. You cannot win sounding like somebody else. When Obama won when he was the president of the United States, a lot of speeches in a speech contest, speech contestants, of course they did not win, but when you view the DVDs and all that, you can expect maybe 50% of the speakers try to talk like Obama. Change, all this kind of gesturing and all that. So if the audience looks at you and says that guy looks, is copying or is trying to imitate or is trying to adopt a style like somebody I know well. So you cannot win sounding like somebody else. You must be yourself. So be bold, break the rules, but do it in good taste. And they'll either love you or hate you. It's always a gamble. Remember, somebody has to win the speech contest. Has to win. So think about it. It's very profound. Rehearsals, avoid being trite, meaning that every time you rehearse, make it seem like, or tell yourself it's the first time you're delivering the speech. So make all the energy level has to be there. Try to get rehearsed in front of an audience, get response, get feedback. But that's another thing I can share with you later, is when you get audience response, you tend to get conflicting response. But you have to try to get the gist of how the audience feels and thinks about your speech. So the danger of looking too well rehearsed is if you've rehearsed over 50 times and on the day of the contest, you're so robotic, you're so bored, you're so low energy that the audience knows that you've rehearsed too many times. So try to strike a balance. So ladies and gentlemen, I will leave you. I don't know whether we have time for questions, but once again, you have to be well remembered, well liked. People talk about you in the bathroom. And anybody can win a speech contest. Somebody has to win. Why not you? Thank you. So again, very good question. The question was, how do you actually amend a speech and tailor-make it in such a way that it actually fits those hidden rules given the different levels of competition. It's correct. Because whilst you're very funny in the club setting and people love you, they know you, when you move to the area contest, you can still use that same speech, but you have to rewrite it in such a way that you have to have a little bit more reinforcement on the message, for example. And if you're moving overseas, obviously, for some local topics that people would well understand in Hong Kong or even Asia, but for some North American people, they may not understand what you're talking about in some examples or stories. So you have to actually tweak it and customize your speech to different levels of competition. For example, if I'm in a club setting, I talk about Cliftons, or I talk about Admiralty, and then I'm competing in an area level, and I'm talking about, in my club setting, the air conditioning is very cold. But people would say, no, it's not cold. In Tin Hau or in Kowloon Bay, it's very warm. So you have to actually tailor-make and customize your delivery or the content in such a way that it would appeal to the mass. And I'll give you an example. One speaker I heard who actually won the district contest talked about this person, David, who died in the speech. Is very touching, very touching. But then he moved to the next level, but because he had to tailor-make the content for the next level of competition, David did not die. He lived. So that's just an extreme example, but you have to tailor-make your speech to fit the competition. How do you actually get audience participation when you're speaking to a large group of audience? Now, sometimes when we talk about audience participation, it doesn't mean that everybody has to raise their hands, okay? It could be a rhetorical question. Or you can get the audience to say a few words together. So if Ed Tate's 2000 speech, year 2000 speech is one of those days. So here the audience repeat or say or actually yell out one of those days about maybe 5 or 6 times during the 7-minute speech, and the audience had about 1,000 people in the audience. So audience participation could be a rhetorical question. When I say, how many of you, I'm already engaging or getting the audience to start thinking about whether he or she is, in response to that particular question. So it doesn't have to be a small group where you're getting people to raise their hands, to yell out or anything like that. It could be a rhetorical question, or you can get the audience maybe start yelling together in unison, or to start, so all different ways of actually doing it without actually getting people to just raise their hands.
Actually, my weakness is when I tell a story, my vocal variety is not wide enough, or people say that it's different to differentiate different characters. Do you have any tips to strengthen these parts? Thank you.
Yeah, I think usually when people are on stage, vocal variety is that much more difficult because you're nervous and you've rehearsed the speech so many times, you tend to get a little bit robotic. So when you're rehearsing, maybe try it in front of an audience or a mirror. Try to be conversational. So when you're actually having a conversation with your friends over the phone or something like that, and you talk about your colleague or your boss, you don't actually have to jump. You don't have to say, oh, my boss actually talked to me today, and he said that I'm a very good employee. And you know what I said? You don't have to actually do that, because when you're talking on a phone, just by the words or the tone you use within the conversation itself, you can actually allow the audience to visualize the 2 different characters. So that vocal variety you have to actually rehearse, do it in front of a mirror, but try to make it conversational-like so that you're actually just having a conversation, an everyday conversation that you would usually have when you're gossiping, when you're having drinks with your friends, when you're on the phone with your friends talking about somebody at work or something like that. So practice, rehearsal. So on a scale of 1 to 10, you must find an 11. And it goes back to the thing I talked about earlier, is that you want to be remembered and you want to be liked. And most important of all, people have to put 3 names on the ballots, the 3rd place, 2nd place, and 1st place. And why not the 1st place? Why not you? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Donald. Please wait. I think you all agree that Donald, well-versed, well-groomed, and well-played, deserve a big round of applause in the room.
Thank you.